Welcome to Not So Boring History. Tonight, let's gently drift back thousands of years to a land of golden sands, whispering winds, and colossal monuments that have stood the test of time. In this calm, story-filled journey, we'll unravel the quiet truth behind one of the world's greatest wonders, the Great Pyramid of Giza. Forget the tales of aliens or magical levitation. The real story is even more incredible, a testament to human ambition, ingenuity, and endurance. So settle in, get comfortable, and let your mind wander as we begin. The desert is quiet. The stars above Egypt shine with the clarity of a time before light, before noise, before cities. The Nile, just out of sight, moves slowly under the night sky, as it has for thousands of years. But here, on the Giza plateau, something remarkable is beginning. Not just a structure, not just a tomb, but a statement from humanity to time itself. It is the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, and though his name will someday be eroded by dust and forgetfulness, the shape he commands to rise from this bedrock will not. A perfect triangle against the horizon, a mountain carved by human hands. But it does not begin with grandeur. It begins with silence, with sand, with a flat stretch of earth and a vision not yet drawn. Long before the first block is laid, the land is chosen, west of the Nile, because the sun dies in the west. That is where the souls go, to cross over into the next world. The plateau offers something sacred to architects: elevation and stone. Limestone beneath the surface, solid and ready. The site must be level, perfectly so. No modern equipment exists, no lasers, no steel tape, no GPS. And yet the Egyptians manage. They dig shallow trenches, flood them with water, wait until the surface is calm, and then mark the edges. From these liquid mirrors they find the high points and slowly shave them down. Surveyors, known as the rope stretchers, move across the site. With knotted cords and plumb bobs, they trace a square so exact it will baffle mathematicians for centuries. The pyramid sides are aligned to the four cardinal points: north, south, east, west, more precisely than any structure for thousands of years to come. The foundations are dug, wide, and deep. Each block that will lie there must bear the weight of everything to come: thousands of stones, tens of thousands of workers, and decades of sweat. But it starts with these first trenches, carved from quiet rock. Khufu does not watch the digging. Pharaohs are not meant to labor, but his presence looms. Priests whisper his name in the chambers of the temples. Astrologers track the movements of stars, aligning the design with the path of Orion, the celestial hunter, the god's doorway to the afterlife. For the pyramid is not simply a tomb, it is a stairway, a machine for rebirth. In distant quarries, hammers ring out. At Tura, men strike pale limestone from cliffs that glisten in the morning sun. At Aswan, deep in the south, red granite is pried from the earth, hard as frozen fire. The men who carve these stones are not slaves. They are not whipped or chained. They are workers, some conscripted, some paid, some honored to be a part of something divine. Their tools are simple, copper chisels, which must be sharpened constantly. Dolerite pounding stones, round and heavy, used to break the granite with rhythmic force. Wedges soaked in water, expanding to crack the rock open. The air smells of dust and sweat and the faint sweetness of date wine offered at the end of a long shift. Once freed, the stones must travel. Some will journey by river, loaded onto boats, floated downstream on the slow, winding Nile. Others will cross land, dragged on sledges by teams of men, the path ahead slicked with water to reduce the pull of friction. A group might move just one block in a day, but the work is constant, and over time, the plateau begins to change. At the base of the site, a village emerges. This is not a slum or a camp. It is a city with bakeries, granaries, water wells, and sleeping quarters. Archaeologists will someday find the bones of cattle here, evidence of meat being fed to workers. They will find fish hooks, bread ovens, and even graffiti, workers scribbling the names of their crews on the walls. The drunkards of Menkaure, the friends of Khufu. These men are not nobodies. They are builders of eternity, and they know it. The first blocks are laid. The core of the pyramid begins to rise, layer by layer. It is not hollow. It is a solid mass, mostly filled with local limestone. The outer casing stones, smooth and brilliant, are saved for later. For now, it's about height. Each level must be leveled, each corner checked. There are no second chances when you build for the gods. The ramps begin as low inclines packed with rubble and mud brick. Some run straight, others snake around the pyramid's rising sides. No one knows for sure which method was used. The truth, buried in sand and time, may be both. What is clear is that the work is grueling, but not cruel. Injuries happen, of course. Backs are strained, feet crushed, but signs of healing are found in the bones. People were cared for, joints reset, teeth treated. These are not disposable laborers. They are citizens, building not for their pharaoh, but for something greater, a promise that the world can touch eternity. Higher and higher it goes. Each block must be placed with care. There are no cranes, no pulleys, no motors. Just hands, ropes, and patience. The casing stones, when they are finally laid, fit so tightly together that even centuries later, some will still hold fast. They reflect the sun like mirrors, making the pyramid shine, a white mountain of light. Inside, chambers are cut. There is the descending passage, narrow, steep, vanishing into the bedrock. There is the queen's chamber, a misnamed room that may never have held a queen. Above, in the heart of the pyramid, lies the king's chamber, a granite-lined room, simple but powerful, like the inside of a star. Above it, 5 small chambers, hidden from view, each with a flat ceiling, stacked one atop the next. Their only purpose, to prevent the crushing weight of stone from collapsing the chamber below. A quiet genius of design. To reach this level, to coordinate this feat, it required more than muscle. It required planning, mathematics, geometry, a workforce managed like a machine. Scribes track the supplies, bread, beer, water, copper. Priests consult omens, overseers shout orders, and through it all, the sound of stone on stone, rope creaking, and breath, collective, human, steady, like the heartbeat of something enormous being born. As the final blocks are laid, the capstone, the pyramidion, is raised. Perhaps it was gilded, perhaps not. No one can say for sure. But in its moment, it must have caught the light of Ra himself, flashing gold above the desert. And then, it was finished. Not with a cry, but with quiet. A stillness that settled over the site like dust. The ramps were removed, the scaffolds dismantled. The workmen returned home, some with scars, some with stories, all with the knowledge that they had helped shape the future. In time, Khufu would be entombed inside. Or perhaps not. His body has never been found. But his legacy, the pyramid, remains. A thing so perfect, so immense, that no wind or war or empire has ever erased it. The sun rises slowly over the Giza plateau. In the quiet morning light, the pyramid casts its long shadow across the sands. It is done. The great structure stands, silent and still, like a mountain frozen in a single breath of time. But the story does not end when the last stone is placed. Around the base of the pyramid, workers still bustle. Crews dismantle the construction ramps, block by block, hauling away the mud brick and limestone rubble that once formed their lifeline to the summit. What was a road is now a memory. They smooth the steps, chip the edges, fit the gleaming casing stones so that the slope is uninterrupted, flat, polished, angular. The pyramid no longer looks like a stacked cake of stone. It is now what it was always meant to be, a clean, sloping face in all directions, reaching upward to the heavens. This is no tomb in the common sense. It is a cosmic ladder. Every angle, every measurement is intentional. The ancient architects were more than builders. They were astronomers, philosophers, magicians of mathematics. The sides of the Great Pyramid are almost perfectly aligned to true north, more accurate than any compass of the modern world. The base forms a square so precise that the difference between one side and the next is less than the width of a human thumb. Inside, the geometry continues. The proportions of the chambers, the slope of the passages, all harmonized with the stars. The Grand Gallery, a high and narrow passageway leading to the king's chamber, is unlike anything else in Egypt. Its ceiling rises steeply, lined with corbelled stonework, creating a sense of being funneled upward, not for the living, but for the spirit of the king. The pyramid was meant to endure, not only in stone, but in idea. And yet, life around it continued. The workers who helped build it did not fade into myth. Some were buried nearby in modest tombs of mud brick and limestone. Their bones tell stories of hard labor, but also healing. Broken bones that had been set, worn joints that show the marks of effort, and the care that followed. They lived and died in the shadow of the monument they helped raise. Their families remembered them, their names etched into shards of pottery. Little jokes scratched into the walls, evidence of laughter, rivalry, routine. The pyramid was not just a royal project, it was a national one, a shared endeavor that brought together thousands from across Egypt's many districts. Farmers who worked during the flood season when their fields were underwater, quarrymen who specialized in chiseling out stone, transport crews who moved the blocks by boat, bakers, brewers, rope makers, potters, a city of labor behind every cut of rock. For Khufu, the monument was eternal, but for those who built it, it was just one chapter in a longer life. The years passed. Dust settled into the joints of the pyramid. The brilliant white limestone casing began to dull under the harsh sun and the desert wind. But it still gleamed, enough to reflect moonlight. Travelers at night would speak of the strange glow rising on the horizon. Some called it a beacon, others a spirit trapped in stone. Generations later, other pyramids would rise nearby, the pyramids of Khafra and Menkaure, each smaller, each slightly different, but all in the shadow of the first. In time, temples would be built around the pyramid. A causeway would stretch from the valley below to the mortuary temple at the pyramid's base, where rituals were performed to honor the dead pharaoh. Priests would chant hymns, offer food and drink, light incense. The belief was simple but powerful. If the pharaoh was fed in the afterlife, Egypt would be nourished in this one. But temples crumble, dynasties fall. By the end of the Old Kingdom, the grand age of pyramid building was over. New kings built tombs in secret valleys, hidden in cliffs, painted with color rather than lined with stone. The reasons were practical: cost, security, a shift in religious focus. The Great Pyramid remained, but its casing stones were slowly taken, stripped in later centuries, hauled off to build mosques and fortresses in Cairo. By the time travelers from Greece and Rome arrived, the pyramid was already weathered, its smooth sides chipped away, its core exposed. Still, it inspired awe. Herodotus, the Greek historian, visited the site around 2,000 years after its construction. He wrote of it with wonder and some confusion. He claimed it took 100,000 workers to build. That ramp stretched far into the desert, that strange machines lifted the stones. The truth, already fading, became layered with myth. And yet, even with time distorting the details, the central truth endured. The pyramid was a wonder, a marvel of human effort, planning, and determination. Later, as Islam spread through Egypt, new meanings were attached to the pyramid. It was said to be a storehouse of ancient knowledge, a monument built before the flood, a relic from a lost civilization. Theories multiplied. None could fully explain its majesty. Even today, it draws speculation. How did they move the stones? What tools did they use? Were there hidden meanings in its dimensions? Could it hide chambers yet to be found? The pyramid remains silent. It gives no answers, only presence, a weight in the sand, a shadow that grows long in the evening sun. And beneath it all, the memory of hands, countless hands, calloused and sunburnt, placing each block with care. Hands that have long since turned to dust, but whose work endures. Long after the last chants fell silent in the mortuary temple, the pyramid remained. The wind brushed against its flanks, sometimes gentle, sometimes harsh, always passing. And in that passing, grains of sand whispered across its stones. Whispers of centuries, of people whose names were never recorded, but who lived within reach of this giant thing. Some came just to look at it, to stand at the base, crane their necks back, and take in what seemed impossible. Farmers on pilgrimage, traders resting along desert roads, nomads who spoke languages Pharaoh never heard. All of them touched by the sight of a shape too perfect, too patient, too ancient to explain. The pyramid became a mirror for stories, a place to project awe, fear, reverence. In time, people said it was not made by men at all, but by gods, or giants, or forgotten civilizations. How could such a thing be built with copper tools and bare hands? The answer, like the pyramid itself, was right there, stone by stone. The truth was not flashy. It did not need magic. What it needed was time and people with skill, endurance, and organization so thorough it could rival any army. Imagine a morning during construction when the pyramid was only half its final height. The desert is cool, still holding the chill of night. But the camp is already stirring. Cook fires send wisps of smoke into the pale dawn. A line forms at the bakery, where bread is pulled from clay ovens, dense, rough loaves that will fuel another long day. Nearby, men haul water in ceramic jars. Some check their tools, sharpening the edge of a copper chisel with practiced movements. Overseers walk the lines, marking attendance, shouting instructions. The hum of motion is rising. A signal is given. Ropes are tightened. Dozens of men brace themselves against a wooden sled carrying a limestone block. With a chorus of grunts and the crunch of sand, the sled begins to slide forward, across a road dampened by water, smoothed by hand. It is not fast. It does not have to be. Everything is in rhythm. They haul, they rest, they haul again. At the base of the pyramid, another team waits, guiding the block to a ramp. There, it will begin its slow climb, assisted by sheer human coordination and clever design. The ramps, whether straight, spiral, or stepped, were arteries, moving material from quarry to summit. Some were temporary, built just for one layer, and dismantled once that section was done. Others curved and clung to the pyramid's side like veins. At the top, precision takes over. This is not the work of brute force anymore. Here, masons use plumb bobs and levels. They chip away at the edges, smoothing the join between blocks. Each stone must fit tightly. No mortar, no error. In the grand gallery, deep inside the heart of the structure, light barely enters. Yet men still work there. They slide granite beams, some weighing over 50 tons, into position. How they did this in such a narrow space is still debated. Some think the gallery was the lifting space, that the angled ceiling helped distribute weight, helped move the beams upward. They used knowledge passed down through generations, techniques refined through other pyramids, smaller ones, older ones, the step pyramid at Saqqara, the bent pyramid at Dashur, each an experiment, each teaching the Egyptians what to do and what not to. The Great Pyramid was not the beginning, it was the perfection, and in its perfection it concealed its labor. By the time the pyramid was finished, everything that made it possible, the workers' camp, the quarries, the scaffolding, was being taken apart. The temporary erased to highlight the eternal. Khufu's name was once written in red ink in hidden chambers, scrawled by the crew who worked there, not in grand script, but casually. A note, a tag, almost a joke. This room belongs to the friends of Khufu. Not carved into gold, not etched into stone, just painted on raw limestone, then sealed away forever. We know the king, not the mason. But in that scribbled name, the distance between them vanishes. Two humans, one revered, one forgotten, both tied to the same monument. And even though Khufu's body was never found inside the pyramid, his presence lingers, not in a sarcophagus, but in the alignment of stones, the placement of chambers, the intention burned into every inch of it. The people believed that when a pharaoh died, his spirit traveled through the stars. The narrow shafts built into the pyramid's interior point toward Orion's belt and the star Sirius, gateways for the soul. Not symbolic ones, but physical passages, carved with purpose, channels through which the king might ascend. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what happened. Not in a mystical sense, but in a human one. Khufu, like all mortals, died, but what he inspired did not. His pyramid became a reference point for all others, not just the ones in Egypt, but monuments around the world, temples, tombs, obelisks, all chasing the same quiet idea: permanence. In a world of sand, wind, and passing empires, something that stays. Far beyond Egypt, in lands where the sun rose and set on different gods, people still spoke of the pyramid. Maps were drawn with it at the center, though its builders had never heard of those lands. Scholars and mystics copied its angles, convinced they held mathematical truths hidden in stone. Explorers came with tools and theories. Some measured every inch. Others chipped off pieces to take home, as if holding one grain of its stone could unlock its mystery. And yet, even with all their tools and cleverness, none of them could say what the workers said as they laid each stone. No document survives that captures their thoughts. No journal, no statue carved in their image. And yet they are there. In every level of the pyramid, their labor made permanent, not through words, but through weight. To build something that lasts is rare. Most things fade, houses collapse, names are forgotten, empires vanish. But this pile of stones, perfectly arranged, it remains. Not because it defied time, but because it worked with it, each block stacked with the patience of centuries. There is no rush in a pyramid. It is built slowly, steadily, like the growing of a mountain. It asks nothing of the world except to be seen. And for those who built it, maybe that was enough, to know that long after their bones had turned to dust, someone someday would see the shape they left behind and feel something. Not awe, perhaps, not fear, but quiet. That quiet is its real legacy, not just in its silence, but in the silence it gives to others. A place where you stand still and feel the size of what came before. The labor, the planning, the repetition, the stone underfoot and the sky above, both impossibly old and yet connected by human hands. Even now, when satellites orbit above and planes fly over the plateau, the pyramid watches without watching. It is not waiting. It does not care whether it is understood. It simply is. And in being, it continues the work of its builders, not in adding stone, but in holding space, for wonder, for memory, for questions that don't need answers. If you visit today, you might hear the noise around it. Vendors calling out in many languages, tourists with cameras and hats, the hum of cars, the buzz of drones, a soundscape so different from the silence of its construction. And yet, if you close your eyes at the base, place your hand on the stone, and breathe, it changes. Time folds in. You can almost hear the scrape of sledges, the ring of a hammer on limestone, the murmur of workers sharing dates and flatbread under a linen awning. You can hear the wind rising across the Nile, the footsteps of a foreman checking alignments, the low chant of a priest asking the gods for clear skies. And if you stay just a little longer, not to learn, but to listen, you might realize the pyramid was never a monument to death. It was always a monument to effort. There is something unspoken between the pyramid and those who gaze upon it. No matter who they are, a child on a school trip, a historian with dusty notes, or a traveler who wandered off course, they all pause. And in that pause, they share a moment with people who lived and died thousands of years ago, people who will never be named, who left behind no stories of their own, only stones. And yet, what a story those stones tell. Not of war or conquest, not of kings and battles, but of process, of discipline, of hands repeated in motion, over and over, one block, then another, then another. Imagine lifting a stone with your team, the ropes biting your palms, the sweat soaking your tunic, the desert sun above, no clouds. Your muscles burn, dust fills your nose, but the block moves just a little. You shout in unison, it slides forward. That's enough for today, and when you sit down that evening eating lentils with a crust of bread, you might not think about the pyramid at all. You might think about your brother, about your sore back, about the woman selling honeyed beer near the granaries. You don't feel like you're building a wonder. But years pass, you have a child, you grow older. One day, you walk past the pyramid and look up, and you realize that block, the one near the southwest edge, third row from the base, you placed that one. With your own hands, you remember it. You remember the weight, and you smile quietly, because you didn't build the whole thing. No one did, but you were part of it. And that part, your part, is still here. That is the story of the pyramid. Not that it was made, but that it was made together. A chorus of effort, a harmony of human strength and patience, the kind of cooperation so vast, so humble, so seamless that it disappears inside the stones. We remember the Pharaoh, but the pyramid remembers the people, not their faces, not their names, but their rhythm, their breath, their belief, not just in the afterlife, but in the idea that what they built could reach it. The winds have not stopped. They blow across the plateau as they always have, smoothing edges, carrying whispers. Sometimes they bring dust, sometimes silence, but always they pass, the way time passes, not in a rush, but in rhythm. At dawn, the pyramid casts a long, sharp shadow that stretches across the sand, just as it did 4,500 years ago. That shadow has touched many things: wild dogs, palm trees, royal banners, Roman sandals, Napoleonic boots, plastic bottles, satellite receivers. None of it mattered to the stone. The pyramid has watched stars change position, entire constellations shifting across the night sky. It has seen the Nile move its banks. It has seen droughts, festivals, weddings, raids, the building of mosques, the rise of skyscrapers. But it has never moved. It has never spoken. And yet, it says everything. It says that people were here. People who lived, worked, joked, argued, sang songs, buried their dead, raised their children, and tried, in the best way they knew, to leave something behind. They could not write history books. Most could not read. But they understood time. They understood that someday, long after their hearts stopped beating, someone might still walk past their work. Someone might feel the shape of what they made and wonder how, and more importantly, why. And though no voice rises from the limestone to answer, something deeper is left behind. A feeling, a message without words, that you are not so different from them. You live under the same stars. You feel the same sun. You carry your weight day after day. You build things that no one else sees: routines, relationships, memories, quiet pyramids that only you will ever climb. And maybe like them, you don't expect to be remembered. But the pyramid teaches this: what we build, we leave. Even if no one remembers our name, something of us stays. In stone, in shadow, in story. And in that way, we are never fully gone. Now the stars are out again. The sky above the Giza plateau glows with the same constellations that looked down on Khufu's workers all those thousands of years ago. The same sky that held Orion, the same moonlight that silvered the Nile, the same winds that once cooled tired hands brushing dust from stone. The pyramid stands in the darkness, as it always has. There are no sounds now, just the soft breath of the desert, the quiet crackle of sand shifting, the low hum of the earth cooling after the heat of day. And in that silence, everything slows down. The thoughts of laborers long gone, the creak of wooden sleds, the slap of sandals in the dust. All of it dissolves, leaving only a deep, settled calm. The pyramid no longer grows. It no longer needs to. It has already become what it was meant to be, not just a monument to a king, but a reminder of what people can make when they work in rhythm, when they plan with care, when they believe in something bigger than themselves. It doesn't sparkle like it once did. Its edges have softened. The casing is mostly gone, but in its stillness, it speaks more clearly than ever. It tells you that nothing is truly permanent, and yet some things can come close. It tells you that even forgotten hands leave fingerprints on the world, and it tells you that the greatest things we build aren't always made to be seen. Sometimes they are made to be felt. In the silence, in the shape of the wind, in the knowing that effort matters, even when no one remembers the name behind it. So now, as you rest, the story stays with you. A quiet mountain of stone, a whisper from the past, a weightless thought stretching back across time, from a starlit night in ancient Egypt all the way to this moment. And now, nothing more needs to be said. Let it rest. Let yourself rest. The work is done, the pyramid stands, and all is calm.